earth, and that's why their money...
Of the earth, of our country, you know.
That's me.
And, you know, you know, it makes... you see this, how corrupt the system is. And you can use any excuse in the world. You can go, well, they might not mine there and we won't get the profit at all and this and that. And like, you can use any excuse in the world. But at the end of the day, you know, they're still making massive amounts of money. And if you want to skim like a couple of million, like, you know, a couple of 100 million off the top, they're still making billions and billions, you know what I mean? And you're like, I'm sure they're going to still be there. And it's just a ludicrous system. For interest rate just happened today in Canada, in France. They wanted to tax people who earn over $1 million a year, and they voted against it, saying it was unconstitutional. And if they started taxing people more that earned over $1 million a year, then it would create inequality in the workforce. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? They earn over $1 million a year. You know what I mean? And it's ludicrous what is talked about blindly to the general population, openly to the general population, and we just remain blind to it. You know what I mean?
Economics is always seen as so hard to understand, so we all just sort of assume that someone else has got that sorted and someone else is thinking about that.
It's not really hard at all. Like, to be honest, like, it might seem they use a lot of these big words, and the way it's described, you know, the way if you go and learn it at uni, it all seems all, you know, technical and all that. But at the end of the day, it's just people with a lot of money keeping a lot of money. That's what economics is all about. And people at the bottom with capitalism have the option of rising up, but it's, you know, the option is more and more limited, and it will become more and more limited as big business and big power gets more and more wealth behind them. But if we're going to start relating some of this back to, you know, all this is covered in Zeitgeist. So the first Zeitgeist movie, to be honest, it covers fuck.
Religion?
No, yeah, I think it covers religion. I know the second one definitely does. The second one covers 9/11, the conspiracy behind 9/11, which we've talked about before, and you know, I'm not going to go into too deeply. The fact is,
talking about that.
Yeah, the fact is, like, you know, all the stories, all the reported stories from what the government released don't add up. So you've got to ask some serious questions about the validity of what we're told, which is what they go into. It also talks about religion. It basically covers a lot of myths. So the myths of what we're born into, including the economic system, because it is a myth. It's just a make-believe thing that, you know, we're told we need for it to exist with.
Well, and also that you actually, it's all based on believing that money represents effort and work or labour or whatever it is you can get for it. And if not everyone, and that's a consensus thing, if not everyone agreed to that, then it would work. Yeah, so you're trusting everyone else that they also agree that this paper thing is worth $1, which can be translated into, you know, a service or good.
That's right. Yeah. But I mean, to cover the religion thing a bit, it goes into how Christianity and Hinduism and Muslimism. It covers how they all basically have a fairly similar sort of startup story. They all come from, you know, early Aztec, you know, concepts, Aztec gods, and
Aztec gods.
I think not Aztec is essentially, but definitely some form of Horus, Egyptian.
That's not Aztec.
Yeah, I know, but Aztec was definitely part of it as well.
Really?
Yeah, I'm fairly sure. But you know, there was a child that was born of a virgin. Spread the message of God, then died.
So many of the stories within
rose 3 days
Christianity
later.
are consistent throughout so many different parts of the world and their religions. So it's kind of like, but that kind of suggests it.
Yeah, you know, I was raised as a Catholic, and I had to unlearn that shit after I started learning a fair bit about the world. I used to pray all the time and that, but I had to unlearn it, and it was a belief system which was hard for me in a way to break, pretty easy in other ways, but it is just simply a belief system, you know. And now the way I see religion is it's a band-aid solution. It's a cop-out. It seems to be a cop-out. Sure, it helps a lot of people in that, but it doesn't make you take control of
it's a cop-out.
Now, I have faith. I have a massive amount of faith in my life, but I have faith of my human counterparts. I have faith of the human race to be able to overcome the trials and tribulations which we need to in the next couple of decades to get to a better place on this earth. I have faith in Mother Nature, I have faith in the energy around me, and I have faith in the universe, and I have faith in myself, mainly. And I don't need to have faith, or I had to unlearn the belief of faith of what I had to have in this mystical, this make-believe person.
It's a cop-out of accountability. It is putting yourself as the victim of another's forces by putting all your faith or whatever and the reasons that things happen all in someone else's control. And so you don't have to take accountability for your own life.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, Islam is the perfect example of that. Like that, if something happens, they do something wrong. What's God's will? Well, if it was God's will, and
isn't that Christians do that too, don't they?
Yeah. Well, they do. But Christianity's, I think, fundamental Christianity is pretty fucking hardcore. But the thing about Catholicism and Christianity, like Roman Catholic is, the main religion around the world, and the majority of them are in Brazil. Catholicism is not as fucking hardcore as Islam. Like, it's not like, you can take what you want in some aspects and not in others. You know what I mean? It's
but
not
if you subscribe to Islam, you have to subscribe to
Islam. Oh, it's fucking prayer 5 times a day. It's fucking, what is it?
I don't know.
It's everything.
You
have to go to Mecca. You have to, it's crazy, But
we're not really going to. I don't want to talk about religion.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, so it touches on that. But then it also goes into fractional reserve banking, Federal Reserve Bank in America, talks about how money's created. This is Zeitgeist. Talks about how money's created. Talks about basically the ins and outs of when you get a loan from the bank, what happens, how is it made, what effort the bank has to go to, and the corrupt nature of the system which we subscribe our lives to. Pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, it just points out sort of the flaws in it.
Yeah.
What I find a really interesting issue with the whole money thing is the issue of value.
Yeah.
That, value, like money attempts to put a standard value on something so that it can be traded, or with the same value in any place or any time with any different person. But the problem with that is that value is an opinion. The only reason that something is valuable to you is because you believe you find use for it and you believe it's valuable to your life.
Yeah.
And whether or not that's not something that it can be standardized, so
no.
It all comes down to whether or not the person needs it and how much they need it and how much value they put on it, and then that should be how much it, inverted commas, costs.
Yeah.
But then there are so many things that are invaluable. Like, how do you put a price on certain things? Like, there are certain favors that people might do for you that are just priceless. It's unique to that person, and no one else could have done it, and that's the only way that you can repay that effort and what they've done for you is through appreciation, and that really is the true cost. Thing that things should cost is an amount of appreciation rather than money.
Yeah.
Another problem with value is that while it does try to standardize, value of things, it's obviously not working, because you can see all throughout the world there is a massive disparity between value of things. Like, you go and look at the effort that someone might put in to create a t-shirt in Australia is for some reason worth a whole lot more than the effort that someone might put in if trying to make a t-shirt in China.
Yeah.
So we're actually saying the money system blatantly says to us that this person's time and effort is not worth as much as this person's.
That's true.
That is universally wrong. That's incorrect.
Well, it is, because if there is one, if I like to look at humanity as some form of guide to how, a black and white roadmap of how humanity should be, like right and wrong, then when you say wrong is unequal treatment of one human to another human. And that's wrong. That's male to female, that's male to male, that's anything. So that is wrong. And it's got to be wrong, because there's no point us going on if we can't get that right in the future. Yeah. That's what we're striving for. That's why Australia is such a fucking amazing place to live, because we've got equal treatment. We've got as equal as we can get. We watched the Salvation Army documentary. There's some not equal shit going on out there, for sure. But there is, when you've got a middle class, when you've got a big middle class like Australia, sort of like America used to be, then you've got a lot of equality in the system. People fucking love living there, which is why Melbourne keeps getting voted best city in the world, which is why, you got a lot of favourable things to live for. As soon as that goes, then it's not. So in that concept, then equality is what is a striving point for any society to get to, and Yeah.
I think you're right. You can't look at that any other way. How can equality not be where we're aiming for? And it's not just a human thing. I think that is a natural sin to be unequal.
But unfortunately, we've got this artificial inequality at the moment. You know what I mean? Which is an artificial incentive to gain money. So you can be a fucking absolute fuckbag, an absolute wanker, and have a lot of money and demand and respect. You know, and get it because you got money and people have to listen to you. You know what I mean? But back in the tribal days and more hunter-gatherer days, the inequality came through the wisest person in the tribe. Sure, maybe the strongest male or something like that. You know what I mean? Got all the hottest chicks.
Not inequality, but hierarchy.
Hierarchy, yeah. Not so much inequality.
No.
They deserved it through physical or mental capacities.
Yeah,
and sure that happens in the monetary system, but a lot of the time it doesn't because you're inherent a lot of money. And the majority of people in the world inherent. Yeah, inherent. Did I say inherent? Inherent. What's inherent?
It means it's an equality that's natural to you.
No, inherent.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Inherent
money. Yeah.
So they inherit money, so they that is just
they
an automatic.
It for nothing.
You know what I mean? They get it for nothing and they don't have to build it. So,
deserve it.
You know what I mean?
So, and I think that's a really, really interesting point because if you look at evolution and the way that a living being is supposed to, a living species is supposed to develop in an environment, you've got certain Darwinistic rules that determine whether or not a species lives on and how it evolves. But we have completely changed tack in the way that we are evolving now. The money has completely clouded the reasons why certain parts of the human species evolve and certain don't.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean, don't you?
I was just trying to say, what did Darwin say? It's not the survival of the fittest. No, he didn't say that. It's he goes the species who
Sorry, I just have your brain fade.
Yeah, I know.
I actually had a lot to say on that point.
Did you?
Yeah. No, you didn't interrupt me. I just had a blank.
Yeah, the species who is the most likely to survive is a species who's is not the smartest, is not the biggest, is not the toughest, is the most adaptable to change. So I think that relates to what we're talking about. Anyway.
Well, that might definitely relate because if we see a huge catastrophe in terms of the economic collapse, then the people who are less able to adapt to the new system, whatever it is, they won't survive, and those who are will. So perhaps people who, the more ingrained you are into the dependence of the economy and the way it works now, the less likely you are to survive without it.
That's right.
But anyway, so you got. I think if you look at humans as a species and which ones of us survive, and doesn't seem to be that the best strains of the species are going to survive. With the money system in place, it gives people certain advantages that they shouldn't. And not only that, I know this is not the most kindest thing to say, but back in the day when it's just dependent on biology and environmental factors, you get people who are disabled that find it much less easy to survive. But now with money, it helps us to care for our people who are less able in the human.
Yes. Yes.
I can't talk at the moment.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, I'm just going to go.
Which is a good thing.
I'm going to go on about what we're talking about with Zeitgeist, and then the third Zeitgeist, which is moving forward, because I've covered the first two. Moving forward, they talk a lot about the human, in a roundabout way, they talk a lot about the human environment / human nature debate, like how do we become a violent, rapist, fucking, greedy, fucking, destructive society? Is it more people, I believe a cop-out is going, just human nature, it's the ego, and that's a cop-out. It's not, I think sure, it's got a little bit to do with human nature, but the vast majority of the reason why we're so fucked up at the moment is because of the society which we've created, the distribution system which we've created for ourselves, and its cutthroat agenda is the reason why we are in such a fucking desolate position. So it talks about that at the start of it. It talks a lot about how people in the system have been shut on, like the worst,